You told yourself you'd start an hour ago. The task is still sitting there. It hasn't moved. You know it matters, and some part of you genuinely wants it done. And yet somehow you've straightened your desk, refilled your water, checked your phone 11 times, and watched a video about deep-sea fish that you will never think about again. You call it laziness. Almost everyone does. It's the easiest word to reach for. Lazy, undisciplined, weak. But the real answer is far stranger, and once you see it, you will never call yourself lazy again. Because what you just did was not a failure of willpower, it was a survival response, an ancient one. Older than writing, older than farming, older than the word deadline by a few 100,000 years. Your brain wasn't avoiding the task, it was avoiding a feeling. Let's slow this down. Think about the last thing you put off, not something boring, something that mattered. The email that could change your career, the project with your name on it, the message you needed to send but couldn't. Notice something? You rarely procrastinate on things you don't care about. You procrastinate hardest on the things that matter most. That's the first clue. For decades, procrastination was studied as a time management problem, a scheduling glitch. People assumed you delayed because you were bad at planning, and that if you just made a better to-do list, the problem would dissolve. Then, in 2007, a researcher named Piers Steel published one of the largest reviews of procrastination ever assembled. He pulled together hundreds of studies and thousands of people, and what he found broke the old story apart. Procrastinators were not simply disorganized, they were emotional. The strongest predictor of whether you'd delay a task wasn't how busy you were, it was how the task made you feel. And that changes everything. Because if procrastination is about feeling, then the question is no longer, why are you so lazy? The question becomes, what are you afraid of? Here's where it gets uncomfortable. Two researchers, Pychyl and Fuschia Sirois, spent years studying exactly this. Their conclusion was blunt. Procrastination, they argued, is not a time management problem at all. It is an emotion management problem. When a task makes you feel anxious or inadequate or bored or uncertain, your brain does something clever and self-destructive at the same time. It removes the source of the bad feeling. You stop looking at the task. The anxiety drops. For a moment, you feel better, and your brain, quietly, learns a lesson. Avoidance works. This is the trap. Every time you flee from the hard thing, you get a tiny hit of relief, a reward. Your brain files it away. Do this again next time. So the habit isn't built on weakness. It's built on the most powerful learning system evolution ever designed, the one that teaches you to repeat whatever makes pain go away. But why is a spreadsheet painful in the first place? To answer that, you have to go back, way back. Before offices, before school, before any task that could be do. Inside your skull are two systems that don't fully trust each other. One of them is very old. Deep in the center of your brain sits the limbic system, and inside it, a small almond-shaped structure called the amygdala. This is your alarm. Its entire job is to scan for threat and react before you can think. It kept your ancestors alive for millions of years. A rustle in the grass, a shadow that moved wrong. The amygdala didn't wait for proof. It flooded the body with fear and made you run. Then there's the newer part. Right behind your forehead sits the prefrontal cortex. This is the planner, the part that imagines next week, weighs consequences, and says, I should really start that report. In evolutionary terms, it is brand new, and it is slow, and it burns energy, and it is easily overruled. Here is the problem. Your amygdala cannot tell the difference between a predator and a project. It only knows one thing. Something here feels threatening. When you sit down to do the work that matters, the work tied to your worth, your future, your fear of failing, your ancient alarm system fires. Not because a lion is coming, but because your brain tags the possibility of failure, judgment, or shame as danger. And to a system built to keep you alive, danger means one thing: get away from it. So you do. You reach for your phone. You clean the kitchen. You research instead of starting. And every one of those escapes is your prehistoric brain doing exactly what it was designed to do, in a world that no longer matches its instincts. You are not avoiding work. You are fleeing a threat that isn't there. Now here comes the twist, and it's a strange one. If procrastination were only about present fear, you might still push through. But there's a second glitch working against you, and it involves someone your brain treats as a total stranger. That stranger is you. A neuroscientist named Hal Hershfield ran a remarkable experiment. He put people in a brain scanner and asked them to think about themselves in the present. Then he asked them to think about themselves 10 years in the future. In most people, the brain regions that lit up for future me looked less like the regions for me and more like the regions that light up when you think about a completely different person. Read that again. To your brain, the future you, the one who has to deal with the consequences, feels like a stranger. So when you dump the task onto tomorrow, it doesn't feel like betraying yourself. It feels like handing the problem to someone else, some other person. Let them deal with the anxiety. Present you gets relief right now, and future you, that distant stranger, inherits the mess. This is why it works in the moment and hurts forever. Piers Steel called part of this present bias. Your brain massively overvalues how you feel right now and heavily discounts anything far away. A reward tomorrow is worth almost nothing next to relief in this exact second. Your ancestors lived that way for good reason. In a dangerous, unpredictable world, food eaten now was survival. A plan for next month was a luxury you might not live to enjoy. So you were built to grab the present and let the future fend for itself. And now that same wiring sits inside you, in a world of deadlines and long-term goals, quietly sabotaging the exact plans your prefrontal cortex is trying to make. Do you see it now? The whole thing is a mismatch. An ancient brain running ancient software dropped into a modern life it was never designed for. Let's put the pieces together. Something matters to you, which means failing at it feels dangerous. Your amygdala reads that danger and pushes you to escape. Escaping feels good, so the habit deepens. And the person who would have to pay for all this later, your future self, feels like a stranger you owe nothing to. That's not laziness. That is a beautifully engineered survival system, doing its job perfectly in completely the wrong century. And knowing this changes how you fight it. Because if procrastination were laziness, the cure would be pressure, punishment, calling yourself worthless until you move. But you've tried that, haven't you? You've bullied yourself for years. Did it work? Usually it made the task feel even more threatening, which made your amygdala scream louder, which made you flee harder. You were pouring fuel on the fire and calling it discipline. The research points somewhere gentler and far more effective. Sirois found that people who forgave themselves for procrastinating actually procrastinated less the next time. Not more, less. Because forgiveness lowered the emotional charge around the task. It took the threat out. And a task that doesn't feel dangerous is a task your ancient brain will finally let you approach. So the trick was never to become harder on yourself. It was to make the work feel safe. Shrink it until it's too small to be scary. The first sentence, the first 2 minutes. Give your prefrontal cortex a task so tiny your amygdala doesn't bother sounding the alarm. Then let momentum do the rest. Because starting, it turns out, is almost the entire battle. And do one more thing. Introduce yourself to the stranger. Picture the future you who wakes up to the finished work or the unfinished mess. Make that person real. The more your brain treats future you like actual you, the harder it becomes to abandon them. Now think back to that task still sitting there, the one you fled an hour ago. You didn't run because you're broken. You ran because a system older than language mistook a feeling for a predator and did what it has always done to keep its human alive. You told yourself you'd start an hour ago. Now you know why you didn't. It was never laziness, and it was never weakness. It was a body built across 1,000,000 years of danger, mistaking a quiet task for a threat, and choosing, as it always has, to survive. The lion was never real, but the part of you that runs from it is. And the moment you stop calling it lazy and start calling it what it is the moment it finally stops running your life.